Welcome to the Make It Count. Oh, we have somebody for that.
Yeah, we have.
They already did.
We have a voiceover for that.
Yeah. How's it going, Phil?
It's going well. How are you?
Yeah. I'm actually super excited about this episode, bringing in Molly Kimball, because I thrive with female entrepreneurs, and Phil hates it because I like female power, but like I really love to talk to.
She was my friend first.
I know. Well, she might be my friend after this one. But I just really love to like dig into, the life of what you have going on. The impact that you're making in the New Orleans area is phenomenal. I've been very fortunate that Phil hooked us up at Tighten Up to Go with the Eat Fit brand. So I'm really excited about that. But just wanted to welcome you. So I'm excited about this episode.
Yeah.
Kind of hear your story and how you got to where you are, and just all the trials and the tribulations that you've gone through, and then how you make it count every single day.
Yeah. Well, thanks, y'all. I'm excited to be here. It's there's so much synergy. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting fit. Thank you.
So like our history, I started Eat Fit. You've taken it much bigger.
He does this on every episode. Like I've started everything. Okay, Jennifer.
Everyone knows it.
When Phil wears his Eat Fit NOLA shirt, people do think
he started it.
Well,
some guys like, I thought only women worked there, and I was like, they work for me.
Oh, there you go.
Shouldn't have given me the shirt. I wear it proudly. I go fight for the brand.
We need to get you a fresh tea. We'll get you some too.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, we got some new styles. We'll get them to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Emma's amazing, by the way.
Emma's spectacular. Emma Poling is our Eat Fit NOLA dietitian. And yes, she's just one of the chillest, most, she just goes with the flow, but she's such a strong person. And yet as she's just going to just kind of like, in whatever way that someone else is comfortable, she's just going to like let it roll that way, you know?
But she's very direct. She gets her stuff done, but in a very chill. Her presence is just very welcoming.
Yes,
and very good person to work with.
Yeah.
She's been.
Thank you.
Her stuff on social media is just. I'm like, Emma, how you eat at all those places? And she goes, I don't know. It's just fun. I was like, okay.
She loves the party of it.
Yeah,
yes.
It's great.
So like Molly and I met at the early stages of Fit.
Mm-hmm.
I built it,
Great.
but it was built on my back. But then, like when I went through my second cancer battle, and I throw it out there that I'm going to do this naturally. I'm not going through treatment again. I'm just going to change this lifestyle. I'm going to eat differently. Molly calls me up right away. She's like, what are you doing? Like,
do you need some guidance here?
like you don't know what you think you know. And so it's just been a journey. Like I'll send her these random texts. Like if I'm on like a 2 a.m. run sometimes. Hey, so I was just thinking, can I eat this? But it's just been a continued, like she's kind of like the guru for me. Much like you are, I'll just send you this random craziness. Like, I was thinking about doing this. Okay. Yeah.
I think also this podcast that you and Jennifer have might be largely conceptualized. Because am I right that your first podcast that you did was when you did it with me, the podcast. So I host a podcast, also Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. And Phil joined me for one that we said, we've got to call this The Raw Truth.
Well, I created your podcast.
And that actually started a theme within a theme.
Series on that. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a mini series.
It was a good podcast because he sent it. He's like, you got to listen to this.
Yes.
I was like, oh God, Phil, here we go.
And then we created a monster.
What did I say? I said, it wasn't me. It was how Molly led me on the journey.
And even when I said, oh my God, because we sat down, I was getting ready to Tighten Up to Go. And I was like, all right, let me get Phil's opinion. He's been through this. He doesn't do it anymore, but maybe he can give me some guidance. And he's like, this is a great idea, but I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But anyways, when we were talking about personal growth and development and his cancer journey, my infertility and child loss, like I was like, Phil, we got something here. And he was just getting ready to go on your podcast. So I think like between the two of us, it kind of helped move. Yes. So I think you and I helped Phil build this podcast.
Right. You're welcome.
Yeah. But tell us a little bit about you and the brand and how it came. Phil likes to say he started, but you tell us.
Yeah, like how did you get?
Like what was
like?
Yeah,
This is a crazy idea in this city to say, oh, I think restaurants should feature a healthy menu.
And also for people that don't know you, like your background and like where'd you come from? Like I'm interested in all that.
So now current point is we have, Eat Fit, which we started in 2013 here in New Orleans with Eat Fit NOLA. And we now have, it's a nonprofit. We work largely with restaurants, but it's really anywhere where food is served or sold. So it could also be places like the Superdome or the airport, festivals, French Quarter Fest and places like that. And it's completely free. And our goal is that when someone wants to make that healthy choice, that we're making it easy for them to know what it is. Because you're looking at menus and sometimes it's hard to tell from the read what's healthy, what's not. So, they have the Eat Fit, we put the Eat Fit seal there. Our team works with the restaurants, the managers, the chefs, get the recipes. We crunch the numbers and we'll come back and, okay, this fits as is, or this would fit with these modifications. Always trying to be very gentle and delicate in those conversations and very mindful of what's going to be feasible or not. And the last thing we want is to give a suggestion that's like, are you kidding me? Like I'm not doing that. So that's sort of the gist of it in a nutshell. And now it's grown into 6 different regions across the state. We have like just a hair under 600 partners. We have 6 registered dietitians across the state, one in each of those regions leading it. We were talking about Emma a bit ago. And so Emma's counterparts across the state are leading this. And then the other part, so backing up, I'm from Baton Rouge originally, grew up in Baton Rouge, grew up primarily with my dad as the, my mom and I stayed close, but my mom moved away when I was younger. They split when I was 3. My mom moved away. And so my dad was like that primary parent that was sort of all. And he always was very health minded. Like he ran back in the 70s when people weren't jogging. And they were like, what, why? Right? What did he do wrong? Right. Who's after him? And so he always kind of had that mindset in nutrition and movement and stuff in terms of, and that was sort of like, I just grew up with that as the norm. He also has a mindset that is specifically geared towards positivity. I actually want him to do my podcast with me, The Raw Truth, because what's interesting about him, this is not about my dad, I know, but what's interesting about him is that the way he grew up was very different from that. Very, very different. He's 82. So a lot of people that, when he grew up in the 40s, things were so different in the culture of like how you could express emotion or how you could just, especially, like at that point, children or boys and men, it just was very different. He had several different pivotal things in his life that kind of brought to light to him that he wanted to live his life differently. And so he made very specific conscious choices through of choosing to live a life of positivity and a life that he's making choices that lead towards that, and that's really kind of a very quick synopsis of it. But I grew up with that way of it, and so he has different things that all of that is to say, like our lives growing up, he had his own business, he had real estate, he had a restaurant, he had multiple restaurants as I was growing up. And then all of that failed like in the late 80s and everybody was, everything was going under and we filed bankruptcy and the house was boarded up. And then, so there wasn't like, oh, things were easy. There's a lot of trying times. And, he's basically a single parent raising this daughter. And like, what do you do? And like, like the first time, like you had to go bra shopping. I mean, he was like panicked, so he paired. I remember
that's why you couldn't have a girl.
I remember he kept using, I would hear him talking to like my best friend, Amy. I would hear him talking to Amy's mom on the phone in the other room. And I looked up the word traumatic because I kept hearing this. I was like, what traumatic is this word? Everything, so traumatic. So that was sort of, I guess, the energy of it, and again, like we rode our bikes to church and no one else rode their bikes to church. It wasn't the norm. I mean, like no one, and no one dressed like we did going to church because we rode our bikes,
Right.
But that was sort of like you choose your mindset. You can't choose what happens. You can't choose what the circumstances are, but you can live it as you choose. And so that I think has always been a little, it doesn't happen always, but I think that's sort of my like default. And then realizing that, again, things happen and you have to look for like what's on the other side of it. Like, how am I, what's going to push through? So that's sort of the answer now of Eat Fit, and then the answer of where am I from and a little of that. To answer how Eat Fit was founded or the idea of it, do you know, Phil, the story of where the idea for Eat Fit came from?
No.
Besides you?
No. It wasn't my idea. I never said it was my idea. Where did it come?
Do you know whose idea it was?
No, I don't.
I thought that you knew this.
No.
If it's not you, it's Brad. Everything is my husband, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably thinking about that while he was eating a bison burger in my restaurant and saying, this is actually healthy and good.
And so for years...
Ain't there no more, Phil.
People would...
That's why I'm not in the cookbook.
I was wondering when I was coming.
We're not 5 minutes into this. Still salty.
He's still salty about this, Molly.
And the stink eye I just got doesn't come through on the audio. No.
We got it on the video.
We got it on
Don't worry. That's the teaser for it. So
Anyway,
it came from your husband,
so
Brad.
From husband. So
He's got great hair. He does. He's got great hair. I love it.
I get a
could run
message
my
from
fingers
Phil
through
like
it.
out of the blue. I just saw your husband at Wednesday at the Square.
Wednesday at the Square.
I love his hair. It was everything I could do not to
I
put
could
my
have just run my
through
fingers through it. Hey, he's got great hair. What?
Are you jealous?
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Yes. 100%.
So for years,
And he
like,
gave me a beer.
All right,
As
let
a-
her talk.
as a dietitian, I've started at Ochsner Fitness Center. I guess it was in '99. And so, for years, people would either clients or someone who read something I wrote or whatever it is that people would know that I was a dietitian. Sometimes I knew them, sometimes I didn't. They think they know you, but
Yeah.
And so at restaurants, people would often either come up and say, what should I order here? And like, I have high blood pressure, I have this. Or sometimes they would sit down at the table and start sharing. And Brad would be like, who is that? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And then other times they would be judgmental. Like, you're a dietitian. What are you doing eating at this restaurant? Like, there's nothing here. And we'd be like, well, no, there is. There's healthy options, but it's just with this, paired with this, whatever. So Brad was like, you should, like as if we had all the time in the world, you should work with the restaurants and put a seal on the menu. And at the time, I was building our client base at our fitness center and building the nutrition practice and the one-on-one consults and really growing this. And now we have a team of like multiple dietitians who do this. But at the time it was like, round the clock, I felt like I was trying to build this and seeing clients. And I was like, there's no way I would have the time for that. And then in about 2013, our leadership at Ochsner was like, what could we do to have a bigger impact on the community in addition to this client base and one-on-one work and such? And I was like, what if we worked with restaurants? And so it was sort of like, yeah, let's just try it out, see what happens, figure it out. Like, what are you going to call it? What's this? And so from there, it grew into what it is now. But it was probably for at least 3 years, maybe 5 years. Brad's like, if you just could like put a little icon on the menu, And so, yeah, now he calls it his best idea ever and his worst idea ever, because of course it's now we have it. I mentioned the team that we have that is an amazing support. But from about 2013, when we had the idea, till we didn't hire the first person dedicated for Eat Fit until 2016. And I was still seeing clients. And so relying on intern help, intern support, volunteers. I mean, you're just like, it's growing and you're like, oh my gosh, like trying to keep up with it. And in fact, one of our interns that we had at the time, she just volunteered her time and was just an amazing asset, is Lauren Hewlin. And then we were able to hire her as our Eat Fit NOLA dietitian. And now she's one of our client-facing dietitians. And so there's just, it's been a labor of believing in this at a time when it was like, you're doing what? Like your work, like restaurants and this. And then just, seeing the little successes along the way, the stories from the chefs, the stories from customers who are using it. And it's grown,
I really liked it. Like I'm bought in, we joke about it and laugh about it and everything, but I'm bought in. Like I'm when I go to a restaurant, Christina always says like, how do you eat out healthy? You eat healthier when you eat out. Like she's like, I ain't doing that. But, like I think as an operator, like it had me looking at my menu differently. Like I wanted to offer health, even though we were gluttonous, I still wanted to have those healthy items. And,
well, even when you came not to cut you off, but even when we came to Tighten Up to Go, and Emma really sat down and was like sharing the perimeters, and I learned. So, I mean, I'm not a dietitian. I'm just, a certified nutritionist, but I try to stay on the know with things. But she was like, "Oh, let me explain this," and I was like, "Whoa, this is like, because I think why Eat Fit is so successful is because you pay attention to details and they educate, like not in a like Emma didn't come in. I feel like I'm talking about Emma, but she should be here. But like, she didn't come in and be like, "Oh no, girl, you got to take that off," and that ain't help. Like it wasn't like that.
Right.
It was truly from a caring point of an education standpoint of, oh, but what if you tried this? And then with the chef that we have, and he was like, "Oh yeah," which sparked like ideas. And then we got excited as a company. And it was just, and we're even like in the health industry. So even having that extra support of try this
it's
was
so collaborative.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a very great, any restaurants out there, definitely reach out.
You.
It's been an amazing experience for us.
Thank you.
And I think that's how the chefs in the, like, I mean, even places like Commander's Palace, like these guys, it's not a healthy industry. And then when you kind of, collaboratively work with someone else to kind of make something healthy, it's.
And keeping it with a fun spin versus like, oh, this is going to help with your blood pressure. That's not what, that isn't the messaging about it. Right. And so putting it in that fun conversation and if you don't want it, there's everything else on the menu still, so it's just the option for people.
And talk to us a little bit about like, so the bank account is all about like the adversity or like the people that not tried to stop you, but maybe the naysayers. I mean, you had to being in this industry is hard because you got a lot of people like just, they think they know everything. I mean, you haven't gotten into any of that, right? But the people that know, how did you get through that? Like, how did you get through if anybody was like, "Oh, that ain't going to work," or, I don't know. Did you have any of those roadblocks?
Well, it's interesting because there's restaurants who at first are like, "We have zero interest in that." I'm like, "No, that's not for us." And then some of them a few years later will say, "Yeah, we are." I mean, we just onboarded a partner in 2022 that our first conversation started with them in 2014. And then they would say, "Nope, never mind." And then, "Well, maybe we do." "Nope, never mind." Like it was like finally they were at a point where they were ready. So some of it is just patience and realizing that, that's just what that is. There's others where it's just never going to be a fit for them and accepting that. And we're like, we work with our team on like, it's not personal,
Right.
And for some places, they almost pride themselves on being the opposite. But there's places that are like, you would never think that this place would either care about healthful options or have healthful options, yet they're seeking it out. So it's the whole range. It's the whole spectrum there. The other thing that I think was, a challenge is when you start a program that is a nonprofit and we're not charging for this, having growth in that program is hard. And so I mentioned, for 3 years before there was an employee dedicated to that, because it's hard to justify how we're going to hire for something that, And so we were able to get a grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana, the foundation. There's a 3-year grant. We received it in 2017, and it was like the best. It was like, it is completely what helped us turn the corner because it helped to fund the expansion into those 6 regions. It helped to fund the salaries of those dietitians. But more than anything, the support of that, it was a tremendous grant for those 3 years. It allowed us to show the value and prove the value that if we have one dietitian in this region, here's how much we can move the needle. And we learned from that on how do we need to communicate it? What do we need to track? What are the things? Because we're not tracking revenue, like the typical things that you would show. So what else do we need to show that shows that this is still effective, even though it's not successful in the typical financial model that, you are looking at this as a nonprofit. And so now Ochsner is like as a community-based organization looks at this as, one of the gold standards of that community work we do. Yeah. But going from that idea in 2013 to now, as we're sitting here 10 years later, there was a lot of points where maybe, it might be someone that was in a management position at a certain time, didn't understand it or support it or was frustrated by it or whatever. But now the climate and the level of support we have inside of the organization, it just, it literally brings tears to my eyes at times. Yeah, it's really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We don't cry on this show.
Only Phil does. Wait, I got to talk about the Eat Fit Nola king cake.
Yes.
I got to bring it up. Where did the idea come from? How'd y'all make it work? Like,
why didn't you bring one?
Why didn't you bring one?
Shirts
king
and
cake.
king cake.
And don't forget about Brian over there.
So the king cake, there is Swerve is a plant-based sweetener that was based out of New Orleans, and they have since grown and grown, and but at the time for years they were based just really down the street in New Orleans. And one of the people who works on their sales team is Ben McLaughlin, and he is a really talented baker. He does a lot with the gluten-free flours and plant-based sweeteners and kind of low carb, etc. And I think it was like 27, and he and I have a TV segment that I do each week on WGNO, and until Swerve, left the New Orleans as their home base, they sponsored the segment for like 10 years, and it was so great because they didn't really care if they were included or not. They just wanted to support solid content. Mm-hmm. But I had been on for a monthly cooking demo or baking demo, and he comes up with the most innovative things. He calls himself like a Paula Deen kind of baker, but like he's also now works with all these other healthful parameters in his baking. So he came up with this king cake, and it was incredibly labor intensive, like rolling it and making it. And we actually have it in our cookbook, the one that Phil
is not in.
So, I didn't think we were mentioning
her. I keep liking her.
I didn't know we were mentioning that cookbook again.
Well, for our listeners, we have a cookbook. It's an Eat Fit cookbook that features our favorite recipes from our Eat Fit partners. Phil's pursing his lips at this moment and not looking at me. And the cookbook comes out, and Phil's like, "How am I not here?" I'm like, "Phil's grill wasn't open at the time of the
I went to the book launch party. I get this invite. I tell Christina, baby,
I'm going to be the cover.
You're going to be the cover.
She's going to mention me. She gets up, gives a speech. I'm over there in the side of the room. I had to stand in line to get my book signed.
He should have been signing the book.
I should have been signing the books.
So the recipe for this king cake is in there.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is delicious. I mean, it tasted amazing. It was beautiful. But I was like, we aren't making our own king cakes. I like that we have that recipe in there. Personally, I make a lot of the recipes from our book. Yeah. I don't make that recipe because it's a lot that goes into it. So we're like, how can we scale this up? So we worked to scale it to where it could be it could be done on volume. And so it's no longer hand rolled and all that, it's done much more efficiently. And then Whole Foods, we had it in a few local retailers that really had early buy-in and interest in it. And then Whole Foods said, we would like to carry it, and we need it to be a dedicated gluten-free bakery. And so we have a bakery partner. I'll whisper Dallas. They're out of Dallas. But you know how people are about their king cakes and such. But they're a large production facility. The woman who owns it and her mom they're amazing. They both have celiac. They started their bakery. They use this production facility because they have 9 storefront bakeries. It's called Unrefined. And so she was the right fit and the right scale, and it needed to be certified gluten-free facility, et cetera. So, so that's how it came to be. And now Whole Foods throughout, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma all sell it. And then a lot of local retailers throughout Louisiana into Mississippi. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I got Eat Fit in Oklahoma. Really?
I think there might only be one Whole Foods there, maybe 2, but yes.
Okay. Is it Eat Fit Nola in Oklahoma? I know that might be the stupidest question.
It's Eat Fit as like the overarching brand, and then it would be like Eat Fit BR, Eat Fit Acadiana. We do that through New Orleans. We have the regions, but in other spaces, they just see it as Eat Fit.
Got it.
Good question. Yes.
I don't know if that was a good question.
Great question. She likes me too.
I don't know if that's a good question. Didn't make any sense.
Well, look, right before you came here, and this might be a controversial subject that I don't know if you want to talk about, but right before you came here, me and Phil were talking about childhood obesity and just this epidemic that's going. And now they're saying, what did you say? They were saying about having surgery for these kids. Like, what is your
like recommending surgery and medicines and at early age, and I say just eat better and go out and climb a tree. But like
But
how
who is
Are kids allowed to climb trees anymore?
they should be.
You don't
if
see
they're
it
not,
happening.
you don't ask mom.
You don't see it
You just,
happening.
But
As if I'm lurking in backyards, but you just don't. I have a feeling trees aren't being climbed.
No,
they should be.
I actually hadn't seen that this is like a like widely occurring happening, but my thought is that there's so much that goes into childhood obesity. It is 100% like one of the significant contributors is the sedentary lifestyle, screen time. Obviously,
tree climb.
Another is foods and what we're serving the kids and in schools and other places. The sugary drinks, the processed foods, the snack foods. Those are two things that I think, like, to what degree or to what scale, the sedentary nature is going to be more of a factor. Others, it's going to be food being more of a factor. But then the third element, there's so much of an emotional component there.
Ooh.
And there's that's also not being addressed.
It's a girl thing.
It is.
We have kids who struggled with significant obesity. I mean, we're talking little children that may have been, 50, 80, 100 pounds overweight and really young kids and short kids. I mean, we're talking, 4'10" and to be 50 pounds overweight or more at that age. And there's several that come to mind that I worked with them as children for years and years and years. And you just, as they got older, there's multiples that come to mind that now they are incredibly, they're all healthy weights. It is not a struggle. There was secrecy eating. There was turbulence within the household. There was other things happening that kind of led to secrecy eating is kind of one of the ways that I would refer to it.
Mm-hmm.
And, at friends' houses or school or whatever it is. And then these emotional things that are so much behind it. So I think all of those pieces, there's what are we serving in schools? What are those parameters? How much are kids moving? Minimizing screen time, all of these things. And then that emotional factor.
One of my crazy rant texts to Molly one time was Christina comes home and says that at school, for breakfast, they gave the kids Pop-Tarts. And I'm like, they're feeding them Pop-Tarts in school. Yeah. Yeah, that's what they do.
I don't even remember that text.
Yeah. It's, we were talking about healthy parents who have maybe good eating habits, but then they don't hold the kid. They don't have the same accountability or expectations for their kids. And they're, like my mom giving me sugar sandwiches and Kool-Aid made with 100 pounds of sugar in it. So,
with that,
it's
I think
hard with kids.
What I see, and I'll say I don't have kids, so you can only say a certain level of things without, sounding, I think, judgmental. But I think a lot of times parents want to be their kids' friends, or parents.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast, and I'm with you on that.
They want to avoid.
I don't do that, Phil, but I'm just saying that she is on something.
You know what
here.
I don't like about liars? When their pants don't catch on fire.
I'm not a liar. Get out of here. My kid wants to be your friend.
Well, that makes sense.
Everybody wants to be Phil's
friend. That makes total sense to me.
But they also want to avoid conflict with the kids. It's easier to just hear, versus what they may feel like is a struggle. And then I don't even know if we should say this, but sometimes I see parents who are incredibly fit, you would say. They spend a lot of time training for triathlons and being very mindful of what they eat.
Exactly what I was saying.
But no, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. I think that my perspective, and this sounds judgmental, and I'm sorry if anybody just hates it, just hate it, and you can send it to Phil, and he'll.
I'll defend you, Molly.
Thank you.
Just say it.
What I see, and there's a few that come to mind, especially because keep in mind my office is in a very large fitness center,
right.
So we see a lot of dynamics and families here. And I see that the parents are putting a lot of attention into themselves and the kids are kind of left behind on the side. And I see that's where a lot of that discrepancy happens too.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that.
We were actually, Phil bullied me into doing 75 hard. And I have a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old. And that my daughter looked at me and was like, "Oh, you're exercising again?" Yeah. And in that moment, I was like, whoa.
Right.
I got to make sure I'm giving the narrative here of why mommy's doing this, And then even for me, exercise, because I run in a fitness facility, it's more of mental game for me that I got to get my mindset right. So after 75 hard, I was exercising and she goes, Mommy, you're exercising. I like, clearly she's seeing this.
Yes.
So I have to make sure that I'm not given the narrative of, oh, I'm fat, or I'm doing this because I'm overweight, or like
I have to exercise.
Like, and me and my poor therapist, me and my therapist talk a lot about this because I want to make sure that I'm not projecting this onto her, that Mommy's doing this to make her brain feel better, to make her feel better and do a better job and, things like that. So it being in this industry and it's hard.
And there's the amount of time that they may see the parent doing that. And then there's also, in a lot of cases, you see the lack of time and attention towards that the child.
Yeah.
And so I think that all of those things are behind it. And maybe it's not because the parent's in a gym, but there's other things that parent is doing that are distracted. And there's just a lot of emotional things underneath it.
My daughter says, and this like blew my mind the other day. And I do try to be when we're home, I try to be mindful. But she says, Mommy, put your phone down. You don't need that. Watch this or do this. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, girl. Let me put it's so innocent, but like, how do kids spell love? Time, right? And I mean, she's an amazing little girl.
Good for her to say it, to verbalize it. Yeah,
she is. I feel. What she tell you the other day? My mom.
You don't listen.
I don't listen. I don't listen to her. This morning she said, this is off topic, but this morning she goes, Mommy, when you start listening to me, I'll listen to you. I'm like, oh, girl, we got to.
Have you said that to her?
No, I have not.
My 14-year-old tells me that. If you don't yell at me, I won't yell at you.
I love when they can like just verbalize feelings like that too.
And their new thing is like big. Have you heard the big feelings?
What?
This new thing, they have big feelings that my daughter talked to me about. And she's like, Mommy, I got big feelings today. And I'm like, well, let's talk. Like, I guess they're teaching them in school about their big feelings. And I'm just like, all right, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Big feelings.
You do have a lot of big feelings, sir.
But it's not often the norm for kids to always feel comfortable expressing that. I'll just say a quick story. This is going to sound another thing that may sound horrible. For Halloween this year, my husband decided that it might be funny if we had scary music playing from our side porch. Not our front porch. So they come up and they don't know. But the side porch is sort of enclosed by a fence. So you don't, and it just is kind of between the houses and like the Never Lands back there. You can't really tell where something's coming from. So he's playing like kind of the organ music. He finds like this Halloween, like on Spotify or whatever, like a channel. And it's got like organ music and the Halloween theme song, which resonated with some people. They were like, oh, is that Halloween?
Yeah.
But then he had one of them is just pure screams like someone is getting like murdered in that moment. And it was horrible. And then another one that he could click to was this like, get out. It was this whisper. And it was like now. And so trick-or-treaters would come and he would have the organ music and they'd be like, oh, like creepy organ music. Okay. And then as soon as they left and they were walking that way past the side yard, but he would change it to either the screams or whatever. And then they would go, oh my God. Like, and at first I was like, whatever, like, that's not that fun. Like, okay. He was so excited about it. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Childish.
Childish.
I know how y'all think.
The first time it happened, I'm like, oh God. And then the second time, then I'm like, do it right now, do it. And like, I was like, I couldn't even take it. This one little girl, she had come, with one group and then her and her dad had come back and her dad says, is this the house that had the creepy music? She's like, yes. Well, then they're on the other side of the street, trick-or-treating in some of those houses. And Brad turns on like the whisper of the get out and turns it up louder. And it's just her and her dad. It's getting towards the end of the night. There's not a lot of trick-or-treaters out. It's only them. And she calls across the street, would you mind stopping it? I'm starting to get a little scared now. Like, and she's like 6. And I was like, good for this little girl to verbalize it. She's like, it's really starting to scare me. And I was like, this girl's never coming down our street again. Year round.
She's dramatic. She's emotionally eating.
Yes. But I'm like, for kids to express fear and for her to have like the guts to say it across the street to an adult, I was really proud of that.
But I think that gives that shows you that house is open to that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That the parents are really, and I think that's the narrative for the emotional eating and the like the overweight and stuff, to have these conversations with their kids. Like, I think a lot of parents are like these overweight kids, they're scared to say, and I'm not saying go and be like, oh, you're overweight, because I think there's a way to I've worked with some clients that they're, oh, my kid's got to get in here because they're overweight, Jennifer. They need to work with you. And I'm like, whoa, there's so much more going on than just that. But I think having that conversation of fruits and veggies are good. And this is, you know, like opening the conversation.
Yeah, focusing on the positives also.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
And but having some expectation of, no, you're only going to have 3 cookies. You're not going to have 12.
Yeah.
You know.
So Molly, if anybody is out there listening and in this industry, what would you like? I know this is kind of like a big open statement, but like, what would you like to leave them with today?
In this industry in general, or just with the interest in wellness? Okay, here's what I would say. Okay. I would say, let's see. One of the biggest things that I find is that when we set a goal for ourselves, whether it's, you know, a fitness goal, a nutrition goal, a weight goal, it can be really easy to feel overwhelmed. It can feel like there's just like too much, and we may not see the results that we want as quickly as we do, or we may not think that we're, you know, we set ourselves up for, I'm going to do X, Y, Z today. And if we don't, we feel like a failure. And so I think one of the trends that I see, a common theme just with people, with all of us, is that we're too hard on ourselves in times when we need to give ourselves a little bit of a pass. And so one of the biggest things that I'll often remind friends or clients is to, you know, address ourselves like we would our friend. You know, we're not going to be that hard on someone that we love and care about. We're going to go, well, no, but look at everything that you have done. Look at all the positives here. That one thing is really, you know, let's look over here. And we would want to try to bring their focus to those, but we don't do that with ourselves. Instead, we focus on what should is one of my least favorite words. Mm-hmm. What should I have done differently? What are the things? And so I'd say, give ourselves that break, cut ourselves, you know, that slack. The phrase, give yourself grace. Yeah, I feel like that's being a little bit used often, but it's true. Like, do this in a way that, like, thinking of ourselves as if we would talk to our friends. Yeah. I think that we are entirely too hard on ourselves, and then that can have us spiraling in so many negative aspects.
I like that. That's great. All right, Phil, you got anything else?
No. Make it count.
All right, let's go out and make it count.